October 24th, 1415. 23:00 hours, Maisoncelles, northern France. It does not smell like glory. It does not smell like history. It smells of human shit. If you are standing in the English camp tonight, the first thing that hits you is not the fear of death. It is the stench, dysentery, the bloody flux. It has been the uninvited guest of this army since Harfleur. 5,000 men are huddled in the dark. Not soldiers, not anymore, skeletons wrapped in rusted mail. Look at them. Thomas Cooper, 19, from Derbyshire. A master bowman. Tonight he has cut the breeches off his own trousers. Why? Because he cannot stop shitting himself. He is too weak to pull them down every 10 minutes. So he sits in the mud, half naked in the freezing rain, shivering. He has 3 arrows left with proper fletching. The rest are scavenged. Sir John Grey, 34, knight. His armour, once polished silver, is black with grime. He is chewing on a piece of leather because there is no bread. He watches the fires across the valley. The French camp, a mile away. Agincourt, you can hear them, not prayers, laughter. 30,000 men, the flower of French chivalry. Dukes, counts, barons. Their armour costs more than Thomas Cooper's entire village will earn in 100 years. They are drinking wine. They are eating roasted pheasant. They are warm. To Charles d'Albret, the Constable of France, looking through his spyglass earlier that evening, the English did not look like an army. They looked like a vagrant infestation. Beggars, one general sneered. Walking corpses, said another. Let us not kill them all, a duke laughed. Let us keep some as pets. They sent a herald to King Henry V an hour ago, not to negotiate, to ask him about his ransom. They were already calculating how much gold they would get for the English king before a single sword was swung. That is the mistake. Confidence is a weapon. Arrogance is a blindfold. October 25th. 5:30 hours, St. Crispin's Day. The rain has stopped, but the damage is done. Henry V walks among his men. He is 29 years old. He has a scar on his face from an arrow taken at Shrewsbury years ago. He knows what steel does to flesh. He does not give a speech about gold. He does not lie to them about reinforcements. He looks at the mud. "Sire," calls out young Thomas, the archer from Derbyshire. His voice is cracking from dehydration. They are so many. Henry stops. He looks at the French lines forming in the mist. A wall of steel, 6 men deep, banners of blue and gold. The oriflamme of France is unfurled, the red flag that means no prisoners. There are fewer of us, Thomas, Henry says quietly, which means a greater share of honour. It is a good line. Shakespeare will write it better later, but right now it is just a man trying to stop his army from routing before breakfast. The king looks at the ground, specifically the ground between the 2 woods. Agincourt to the right, Agincourt to the left, a funnel, 700 yards wide, and the ground. It is a ploughed field, soaked by 2 weeks of autumn rain, trampled by thousands of French horses during the night. It is not earth. It is a glutinous, knee-deep clay trap. The trap. The French see a flat field. Henry sees a killing zone. He orders the movement. Banners advance. This is the most dangerous moment. The English army, these 5 Suos and 6 starving men, pull up their stakes, giant wooden spikes, 6 feet long, sharpened at both ends, and march forward. They are moving within bowshot. If the French charge now while the English are moving their stakes, it is over. The English will be trampled flat. Henry holds his breath. 5,000 men hold their breath. Thomas Cooper drags his stake through the mud, his bowels cramping, his hands shaking. Just charge us, he thinks. Charge us now and end it. But the French do not move. Why? Because knights do not charge beggars until they are ready. They are finishing their breakfast. They are putting on the last pieces of plate armour. They are arguing over who gets to be in the front row to capture the king. They watch the English move closer. They laugh. Look, and says a French captain, they are coming to die faster. 6:50 a.m. The English plant their stakes, a forest of wood aimed at the chests of horses. The archers take their positions. Thomas Cooper steps into the mud. He loosens his shoulders. He plants his feet. He reaches into the earth. He takes an arrow. He places it on the string of his yew longbow. a weapon that requires 100 pounds of force to draw, a weapon that warps the skeletons of the men who use it. Henry V raises his hand. Silence falls over the valley. The only sound is the jingling of French harness and the heavy breathing of sick men. "Now strikes it," Henry whispers. "Knee!" The command to shoot. 5,000 bows rise, not straight at the enemy, up, into the grey sky. 07, 00 hours, the first volley. Physics is a cruel mistress. An arrow leaving a longbow travels at 200 feet per second. A bodkin point, a heavy chisel-shaped steel tip, is designed for one thing, punching through mail and plate. But the first volley isn't for killing. It is for provocation. Thwack. The sound of 500 strings releasing at once is not a twang, it is a thunderclap. The sky turns black. For 3 seconds, the French look up. It looks like a flock of starlings, a young French squire thinks. Then the starlings land, clang, thud, crack. They hit helmets, they hit shoulder plates. Most bounce off the high-quality Milanese steel of the nobles. But the horses are not fully armored. 1,000 horses scream. The French line ripples. The arrogance breaks for a split second, replaced by annoyance. They dare? These peasants dare to sting us? The Constable of France, d'Albret, lowers his visor. He makes the decision that will end the Middle Ages. "Advance," he orders. "Crush them." The ground shakes. 30,000 men, thousands of heavy cavalry, moving forward into a funnel, moving forward into the mud. Thomas Cooper reaches for his second arrow. His sickness is gone. His hunger is gone. There is only the rhythm, knock, draw, loose. He is not a beggar anymore. He is a machine, and the French are walking directly into the meat grinder. The mud sucks at the hooves of the French horses. What looked like a charge becomes a stumble. The heavy plate armor, weighing 60 pounds per man, becomes an anchor, and the arrows keep coming. 12 arrows per minute. 5,000 archers. That is 60,000 arrows in 60 seconds. It is not a battle. It is a storm of steel. But the French are still coming. They are vast. They are ironclad. And they are angry. Thomas sees the first line of cavalry break through the mud only 50 yards away. A giant warhorse foaming at the mouth, ridden by a knight in blue steel, coming straight for his stake. Thomas doesn't run. He draws the string to his ear. He aims not at the knight, but at the horse's chest. "Judgment Day," Thomas whispers, and releases. 07, 20 hours. The mud. The first rule of panic. It flows backward. The French cavalry charge has failed. It didn't fail heroically, it failed clumsily. Horses, maddened by bodkin arrows in their flanks and chests, do not obey reins. They obey pain. They turn, they bolt, directly into their own advancing infantry. Jean-Luc de Vaucourt, 22. He is in the front row of the French vanguard, dismounted. His armor is a masterpiece of Milanese craftsmanship. It cost his father 3 villages. He feels invincible, until a 200-pound warhorse fleeing the English arrows smashes into the man next to him. The man explodes. There is no other word for it. Plate armor crunches like a beetle shell. Jean-Luc is knocked sideways into the mud. He tries to stand, but the mud at Agincourt is not just wet earth. It is thick, adhesive clay. It grabs his sabatons, armored boots, like hands dragging him down to hell. "Move forward," screams the Duke of Alençon from somewhere behind. "Go back," screams a dying man in front. Nobody moves back, because behind Jean-Luc, 5,000 other knights are pushing forward. They haven't seen the arrows yet. They haven't seen the stakes. They only know they want to fight. So they push, and the crushing begins. Year 8. 00 hours. The killing zone. The English archers have stopped shooting. Not out of mercy. They are conserving ammunition. Thomas Cooper stands panting. His arms burn. He watches the scene in front of him. It defies logic. The French army has funneled itself into the narrow gap between the woods. 30,000 men trying to fit through a space meant for 5,000. It is a human traffic jam, but lethal. The French front line reaches the English stakes. They are exhausted. They have walked a mile through knee-deep mud, carrying 60 pounds of steel. They are gasping for air inside their helmets. Their visors are down. Their vision is limited to a thin horizontal slit. They raise their cut-down lances to strike, but they cannot lift their arms. Why? Because they are packed so tight, shoulder to shoulder, chest to back, that they literally cannot move their limbs. Thomas watches a French knight, 3 yards away, simply fall over. Nobody hit him. He just fainted from heat exhaustion and lack of oxygen. He falls face down in the mud. He tries to push himself up, but the knight behind him steps on his back. Then the next one steps on his head. The mud fills the fallen knight's visor. It fills his nose. It fills his mouth. Philippe, 19. Marc, 24. Antoine, 30. They don't die by the sword. They drown in earth, while their friends walk on top of them to get to the English. 08:30 hours, the butchers. King Henry V sees the paralysis. The French vanguard is stuck. They are a wall of steel that has become a statue. They are swaying, pushing, screaming, but not fighting. Henry draws his sword. "Bows down," he roars. "Hammers up." This is the moment warfare changes. Thomas Cooper drops his yew-bow. He is not a soldier. He has no armor, he has no sword, he has his breeches cut open because of the flux. He is covered in his own filth. He looks like a demon. He picks up a lead mallet, a heavy hammer used to drive the wooden stakes into the ground. He looks at the French knight stuck on the stakes in front of him. The knight is flailing, trying to pull his sword free. But he is pinned by the weight of the men behind him. Thomas steps into the mud. He swings the mallet. Crack! The sound of lead hitting a steel helmet is sickeningly dull. The knight stops moving. Thomas hits him again, to be sure. Then he takes a dagger, a long thin blade called a miséricorde, mercy, and slides it through the visor's eye slit. The maths of slaughter. An armored knight is a tank, but a tank that has fallen over in the mud is a metal coffin. The English archers, light, unarmored, agile, swarm over the stuck French lines like ants attacking a wounded beetle. They don't fight fair. They slip in the mud, slide under the knight's guards, and stab at the armpits, the groin, the neck, the weak points. It is frantic. It is messy. It is industrial. Sir John Grey is in the thick of it now. He is fighting differently. He is a man-at-arms. He fights with technique. He sees the French Duke of Alençon's standard bearer. He steps forward, parries a clumsy blow from an exhausted Frenchman, and thrusts his sword into the gap of the cuirass. The Frenchman falls, but there is no space for him to hit the ground. He dies standing up. Wedged between 2 other living men, the pile of bodies begins to rise. First knee-high, then waist-high, the English climb on top of the dead Frenchman to kill the living Frenchman behind them, a ramp of corpses, the perspective of the damned. Inside the French press, Comte de Marle is screaming. He cannot see the English. He can only see the back of the helmet of the man in front of him. The man in front goes limp, dead, but he doesn't fall. The pressure from behind is so immense that the dead man is held upright, swaying with the crowd. De Marle feels his ribs bending. The breath is squeezed out of him. He looks left. His cousin, Louis. Eyes wide behind the visor. Louis is screaming, but no sound comes out. His chest plate is being crushed by 2 other knights. Snap! Louis's ribs give way. Punctured lung. He drowns in his own blood, standing up, pressed against de Marle. "Back!" De Marle tries to yell. "Go back!" But the rear guard, the thousands of fresh men in the back, are still shouting, "Montjoie Saint-Denis," and pushing forward eager for glory. They are pushing their own leaders into the meat grinder. 09. 15 hours. The king enters. Henry V is not watching from a hill. He is fighting on top of the body wall. His helmet has gold crown accents. It makes him a target. 18 French knights, the Oath brothers, have sworn to kill him. They smash through the English line. One of them, a giant named Bruneau, swings a mace. It hits Henry's helmet. The gold crown splinters. A piece breaks off. The king stumbles, falls to his knees in the blood mud. His brother Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, is down next to him, a sword in his groin. Henry stands over his brother. He swings his sword wildly. Not like a king, like a survivor. Thomas Cooper sees his king fall. He is 20 yards away. He has lost his mallet. He has lost his dagger. He picks up a rock, a heavy flint stone from the field. He throws himself at the back of the French knight attacking the king. He smashes the rock into the back of the knight's knee. The joint buckles. The knight falls. Henry finishes him. The king looks at Thomas. Thomas looks at the king. Both are covered in grey mud and red blood. There is no rank here, only the living and the dead. "Hold!" Henry screams. "Hold the line!" But the line is changing. The French are no longer attacking. They are oscillating. The pressure has become too much. The horror has finally reached the back rows. They realize that the men at the front aren't fighting. They are being butchered like cattle in a pen. The retreat begins, and the slaughter follows. 13. 0 hours. The false silence. The killing has paused. The noise has changed. It is no longer the roar of battle. It is the low moaning of 3,000 wounded men lying in the mud. The English have won, or so they think. They are exhausted. They are leaning on their bloody swords, vomiting from adrenaline and the reek of opened bowels. But they are rich. In the last hour, the capturing began. Medieval warfare is a business. A dead knight is useless. A living knight is a lottery ticket. Sir John Grey is guarding his prize. He has captured a French count. The count sits in the mud, helmet off, nursing a broken arm. 5,000 crowns, Grey calculates, enough to rebuild the manor, enough to buy new horses. He offers the Frenchman a water skin. They are not enemies right now. They are members of the same club, the club of men who survived. All across the field it is the same. English knights are guarding French knights. They are comparing heraldry. They are discussing ransoms. There are nearly 2,000 French prisoners sitting in groups behind the English lines. 2,000 men, unarmed but alive, men who are trained to kill from birth, and they are watching. 13. 30 hours. The threat. King Henry V does not look at the ransoms. He looks at the horizon. The English army is scattered. They are looting bodies, gathering prisoners, drinking wine from captured French flasks. They have lost their formation. And on the ridge, the French third line is forming. The rear guard. 10,000 fresh men. They haven't fought yet. They have watched their brothers die in the mud. And they are angry. They are mounting their horses. Suddenly a shout from the rear. "Baggage train, the baggage train!" Henry turns. Behind the English lines, local French lords, robbers essentially, have raided the English camp. They are stealing the king's spare swords. They are killing the page boys. Smoke rises. Henry does the maths. He is a king, which means he must be an accountant of death. The equation. He has 5,000 exhausted men. He has 10,000 fresh French enemies in front of him. He has 2,000 French prisoners behind him. If the French rearguard charges, and the prisoners see their chance, they will pick up rocks. They will pick up discarded swords. They will strangle their captors with their bare hands. The English will be crushed between the hammer, the rearguard, and the anvil, the prisoners. Henry freezes. His face is a mask of cold logic. He calls a herald. "Tell the knights," he says. His voice is flat. "Kill the prisoners." 13. 45 hours. The refusal. The herald rides to Sir John Grey. The king commands. The herald pants. "Kill your prisoner." Grey looks at the herald. He looks at the French count who is drinking his water. "No. It is the king's command." "It is murder!" Grey shouts. "And it is 5,000 crowns. I will not slit a nobleman's throat like a pig." It happens all down the line. English knights refuse. It is against the code of chivalry. It is against the church, but mostly it is against their wallets. They are not going to burn their lottery tickets. Henry sees the refusal. He sees the French rearguard starting to move. He has seconds before he loses everything. He turns to the one group of men who do not care about chivalry, the men who do not have ransoms, the men who have been called beggars their whole lives. He turns to the archers. He turns to Thomas Cooper. "You," Henry says. He points to the prisoners. 200 archers, go, finish them. 14:00 hours. The butcher's work. Thomas Cooper does not hesitate. Why? Because he knows something Sir John Grey does not. If the battle restarts, Sir John Grey will be captured and ransomed. Thomas Cooper will have his eyes gouged out and his fingers cut off. Archers are not ransomed. They are mutilated and killed. For Thomas, This is not about honor. It is about survival. He walks over to the group of prisoners. He still has the lead mallet in his hand. The French count looks up. He sees a peasant covered in shit and blood. He starts to stand. "I am a count of the realm. I have yield—" Thomas swings the mallet. It hits the count in the face. The ransom is gone. The lottery ticket is cancelled. Pandemonium breaks out. 200 archers move through the prisoner pens like wolves in a sheepfold. It is not a battle. It is an execution. Jean-Paul, 16, a squire. He is on his knees, begging. He holds up a cross. An English archer kicks him in the chest and stabs him in the throat. The burning barn. A group of 50 French knights are held in a farm shed nearby. The archers do not go inside. They lock the doors. They pile straw against the wood. They light it. Inside, the screaming starts. It is a sound that will wake Sir John Grey up at night for the rest of his life. The smell of roasting meat mixes with the smell of the mud. Sir John Grey turns away. He vomits. He watches his fortune, his honor, and his humanity burn. "This is not war," he whispers. "No," says a voice beside him. "It is Thomas Cooper." Thomas wipes his knife on his breeches. "This is winning." 30 hours. The message. The smoke from the burning prisoners drifts across the field. It reaches the French rearguard on the hill. They stop. They watch. They see the English king is not playing a game. They see that he is willing to butcher the flower of French nobility like cattle if pushed. The leader of the French rearguard looks at the mud. He looks at the wall of corpses. He looks at the smoke rising from the execution pits. The resolve breaks. Fear, cold, naked fear, takes hold. If they charge, they will not be captured. They will not be ransomed. They will be slaughtered. The French third line turns their horses, slowly at first, then faster. They ride away. They leave the dead. They leave the dying. They leave the beggars standing in a field of ruin. Henry V watches them go. He lowers his sword. His hand is shaking, not from fear, from the weight of what he has just done. He has destroyed the French army. He has destroyed the French nobility. But he has also destroyed something else. The idea that war is a gentleman's game. He rides up to the French herald, Mountjoy, who is trembling. "What is this castle called?" Henry asks, pointing to a nearby tower. "Agincourt, sire." "Then let this be called the Battle of Agincourt, the cost of the hour." The massacre lasted 30 minutes. In that time, perhaps 400 to 1, 0 prisoners were killed. Guillaume de Dampierre survived the arrows, survived the crush, had his skull crushed by a rock while his hands were tied. Henri de Saint-Pol survived the charge, burned to death in the barn. Henry V saved his army. History will call him a hero. Strategic manuals will call it a necessity. But Thomas Cooper, sitting in the mud, washing the blood off his hands with dirty water, feels nothing. He is just hungry. He looks at the dead count. He searches the body. He finds a small pouch of silver coins. He puts it in his pocket. "Beggars," he says to the corpse. "Who is the beggar now?" October 25th, 1415, 17. 0 hours, the field of blood. The sun is setting. The screaming has stopped. Now there is only the sound of crows and the wet squelch of boots pulling off armor. The looting is in full swing. It is a gruesome harvest. The English archers, the men who were shivering with dysentery 12 hours ago, are now walking among the mounds of dead. They are stripping the French corpses, silk tunics, gold rings, jeweled daggers, boots, especially boots. Thomas Cooper has found a pair of dry leather boots on a dead French baron. He puts them on. They are a size too small. He doesn't care. They are dry. He looks at his hands. They are stained black with blood and mud. He will scrub them for weeks, but the phantom stain will never leave. He walks past the body of the Constable of France, Charles d'Albret, the man who commanded the greatest army in Christendom. He is lying face down in the mud, stripped to his underclothes. A peasant boy from London is trying to pull a gold ring off his swollen finger. The boy uses his teeth. This is the reality of war. There is no dignity in defeat, and in victory there is only plunder. The tally. King Henry V sits in his tent. He is eating bread, real bread captured from the French wagons. His clerks are bringing him the numbers. The numbers are impossible. Henry reads them twice. English losses, the Duke of York, the Earl of Suffolk, and perhaps 100 others, maybe 400 if you count the wounded who will die later. Less than 5% of his army. French losses. Henry looks at the second list. It is a scroll that unrolls to the floor. 3 dukes, Alençon, Brabant, Bar. 7 counts, 90 lords, 1,500 knights. Total dead, over 6,000. 6,000 men. The entire governing class of northern France, wiped out in 4 hours, by beggars. Henry looks at the list. He does not smile. He knows that God has tipped the scales, or perhaps it was just the mud. Non nobis Domini, he whispers, not unto us, O Lord. But he keeps the list. It is his receipt, the return. November 14/15, London. They do not come back as beggars. They come back as gods. When the ships dock at Dover, the crowd is so thick that men wade into the freezing water to carry the king ashore on their shoulders. London goes mad. Wine flows in the conduits of the city. Choirs sing. But Thomas Cooper does not go to the palace. He takes his share of the loot, 4 silver coins and a looted dagger, and walks north. Back to Derbyshire. He walks into his village. He is thin. His skin is yellow from the sickness that still lingers. But he is alive. His mother sees him. She cries. His father asks, "Did you see the king?" Thomas nods. "Did you kill a Frenchman?" Thomas looks at the fire. He thinks of the lead mallet. He thinks of the man in the mud. He thinks of the burning barn. "I survived," he says. He never speaks of Agincourt again. He marries. He has 3 sons. He works the land. But every year on St. Crispin's Day, he feels a phantom pain in his shoulder, the ghost of the draw weight, and he remembers the sound of the arrows blocking out the sun. The legacy. Why does this story matter? Why 600 years later do we still talk about Agincourt? It is not because of Shakespeare. It is not because of the king. It is because Agincourt broke the world. Before October 25th, 1415, the knight was the tank of the Middle Ages. He was invincible. He was the law. A knight could ride into a village, kill a peasant, and nobody could stop him. Agincourt changed that. Agincourt proved that a starving peasant with a piece of yew wood could kill a prince in shining armor. It was the democratization of death. The longbow was the great equalizer. It taught the aristocracy a lesson they never forgot. Iron breaks. Horses fall. And mud does not care who your father was. 2024. Agincourt, France. The field is still there. It is peaceful now. A crucifix marks the mass grave where thousands of French knights lie tangled together, their bones indistinguishable from one another. Dukes and counts mixed with the earth. If you stand there in October, when the plows have turned the soil, you can still find things. A rusty arrowhead, a button, a coin, remnants of the day the starving beggars ate the kings. Conclusion. Henry V would die of dysentery, the same disease that plagued his men, just 7 years later. The English would eventually lose the war. France would be French. But the memory remains, the memory of the impossible, the memory of the few. And somewhere in England, in a small churchyard in Derbyshire, there is a grave with no name, just bones returning to dust. The bones of a man who walked in shit, stood in the rain and held the line against the world, and won.